Hi, I'm Molly Saylor. You may already know me as ESD's Resident Lifecycle Assessment Enthusiast. Soon, I hope to become ESD's newest environmental planner / climate guru, which is why I'm going to spend the next 5 minutes explaining how I communicate environmental data strategically and why it would be great for this position. I believe that how we communicate complex environmental data to the public and even to our peers has a tremendous impact on whether our message is absorbed or not. Over the years, I've learned a few tricks to make communication really successful. The first tactic I have found helpful is storytelling. Storytelling helps set the scene, giving the audience a mental picture that I can circle back to at different points throughout my presentation. I used this strategy at the 2014 Biogas Science Conference. I began my talk on alpine biogas research with this picture of a grazing cow. I left the slide up for almost 2 full minutes as I told the story of declining pastureland and its social and environmental consequences. When I moved on to talk about the numbers, my audience had a visual image and a storyline. Another trick I use is offering relatable analogies to help give obscure results more meaning. When I presented the results of my master's thesis, I told the food cooperative stakeholders 2 things. 1, that their tomatoes were causing 412 grams of CO2 equivalent to be emitted per kilogram of tomatoes, and 2, that their tomatoes were responsible for the same amount of greenhouse gas emissions as if they had been ordering them from southern Italy. That's far. The distance between Vienna and Italy might not be very tangible to an American, but it certainly is to an Austrian. In fact, this is the very thing the food cooperative had been trying to avoid all along: long transportation distances from neighboring countries. That analogy gave them far more context than just leaving it at grams of CO2 equivalent per kilogram of tomato. Another example that hits closer to home is something I dreamed up last week while working on my food waste LCA for the city of Fort Collins. I calculated that approximately 3.9 million cubic feet of methane could be generated each year from residential food waste. If you don't have a clear picture of how much that is, you're not alone. I too wanted to understand that amount in relation to something I was more familiar with. So I calculated that you could fill nearly 20 Goodyear blimps with that amount of methane. Not that anyone would actually want to do that, but I think the mental image works. Sometimes a good story and relatable analogies aren't enough to communicate the bigger picture. In many cases, I believe that a good graph can be an excellent tool for communicating environmental data, if it is the right kind of graph, and if sufficient time is spent explaining it. I feel that good graphs tend to show relationships and give context. This graph from my master's thesis does just that. The CO2 equivalent of tomatoes for 5 distribution pathways are shown here, and within each bar, the emissions from agriculture, transport, and packaging are compared. Not only can we see which pathways are the most climate-friendly, such as these here in the middle, but we can also identify problems, such as these long bars on the sides. I presented this graph several times to different audiences and learned how important it is to not just explain, but also discuss what the graph shows. For example, it might seem that the food cooperative and the farm store are the worst options. However, these purple and orange bars represent different kinds of transportation emissions. If transportation processes were made more efficient, perhaps through better loading of the food cooperative van or carpooling to the farm store, those same options could become excellent choices. I also think it is crucial to know your audience. What are their preconceptions, convictions, questions, and concerns? In Vienna, I became closely acquainted with the food cooperative I was studying, which allowed me to present my results to them at a level that they could work with, even when what I had to say was not what they wanted to hear. Learning how best to communicate with them was an iterative process involving me asking for their feedback after presentations, self-reflection, and asking my peers for tips. And of course, figuring out how to speak publicly in German. By talking about my communication strategies and past projects, I've hopefully shown that I can get through to an audience. That is one reason why I know I would be great in this position. I also know that I can successfully transfer my life cycle assessment skills to compiling the city's greenhouse gas inventory. I know that I'm enough of a systems analysis nerd that I'm going to come to work excited to dive into an Excel spreadsheet every day. I know that there is also a political science nerd in me who can't wait to be in the thick of municipal policy making. I know that I have the organizational and interpersonal skills to work with city colleagues, the city council, community members, and other professionals in the field to continuously improve the city's climate efforts. I know that I'm an idea person and that I like to be in the thick of innovation. I know that I'm a very determined and resilient person who will push through, not give up, when I struggle. Finally, I know that I went into this field because I'm intrinsically motivated to create a more just and sustainable society, and that this position presents a tremendous opportunity to do just that. There are many reasons why I'm excited about this job beyond what I just mentioned, but since I figure I should leave something for the interview, I will end this video with my favorite Edward Abbey quote: "I stand for what I stand on." Thank you.